Chapter 11. Death. From the Initiation, a Progressive Spiritual Manual by Llewellyn. Death and immortality go hand in hand. Walking alone one night in the woods, you hear a few twigs breaking. Birds fly up with clapping wings from the ground, and an owl begins to sing in the distance. It's pitch black, your eyes are still adjusting to the darkness, and you feel fear run through your bones. The darkness surrounds you, and you imagine that this wood may have been used by witches in the past. Perhaps there are ghosts moving around the trees. Perhaps they may be after your blood. You decide to feel the fear and brave your way through it, so you close your eyes and walk across the soft, damp ground. The light of the city seems dazzling. The cars buzz by and people shout as they queue up for bars and clubs. Some are still in their business suits as they stand and chat, clicking glasses together. You walk among the crowds. All the buildings seem to hold a pretense of permanence. How long will their shining chrome last for? Amongst this crowd, what is the purpose of all their actions? Is this what life is all about? In many of the world's spiritual traditions, people are encouraged to remember and reflect upon death. Memento mori is the Latin phrase that means remember that you can die. The purpose of this kind of reflection is to bring about a sobering of the spirit. It is easy for people, especially in our culture, to begin to forget about death entirely, or at least to stubbornly lay it to one side. Death is hidden from us and treated as the enemy to be avoided at all costs. As soon as someone dies, the body is whisked away and put on a slate in a mortuary locker room. In our age, people are drawn into all kinds of worlds where death does not seem to have its natural sting. Where is death in the virtual world of the internet? Where is it in all the artifice of plastic offices and shopping centres? People are surrounded by forms that seem to protect them from the reality of death. Death, though, is always below the surface. It's the other side of being. It's held in nature, it's in the trees and the cells of the animals, and it's within our thoughts, bodies, and minds. It may seem like death is not found in the concrete makeup and bright lights of our urban lives, but if we scratch the surface and look, listen, and feel deeply, we will find death there as well. If you ask most people if they are afraid of death, they will often say, no. I have a strong impression, though, that this is mainly because they are simply not aware of death. They do not think about death. On some mental level, they have tried to hide themselves from death. Even in spiritual circles, death is often, to my mind, too easily skirted over. You are told things like, oh, death is just a shift in consciousness, or death is just like a changing of clothes from one set to another. No big deal, man, it's nothing to fear. There is spiritual truth in these statements, but they can, though, act as a kind of superficial layer over which we can simply, yet again, cleverly skirt and skate over the question and the reality of death. If death was really no big deal, why would great spiritual figures, such as the historical Buddha, say that death was his main teacher? In some ways, it has to do with our relationship with fear. Sometimes it can seem in spiritual circles like fear is the great arch-enemy, but as the 14th Dalai Lama once said, there are unhealthy fears, like social fears of reaching out to people, but then there are healthy fears, like, for example, the fear of death. In many ways, death is a teacher of value and meaning. The Buddha said that those who know that we are all heading for death will soon resolve their quarrels. When we reflect deeply and earnestly on death, a lot of superficial things and thoughts begin to fall away. It is not possible to be really vividly alive unless you are aware of death, because death is woven up into the very fabric of life. The essence of everything is eternal, but at the same time transience is woven into all. Death is the other side of the coin of awareness. Everything brightly shivers in the transience of this world. We could say that unless we are aware of death, we are dead already. It would be wonderful if we could reach this kind of awareness of the eternal and the transience in all. If we did this, we would find rich pools of meaning in our lives. Our physical lives are highly transient, but yet we act as though there will be no end. Although we like to pretend otherwise, each day could be our last. Knowing this can add a sense of meaning and gravitas to our lives. Many people seem to experience life in only a superficial way. Might they have forgotten death and transience? There is no morbidity on reflecting on death. Doing this may well bring you back to life. Contemplating death can be like spiritual resuscitation. Each contemplation can be like breathing more life into the person who was pretending that death was not important, or that they were unafraid of death. With each reflection and moment of awareness, you may find that all the superficial and dead layers of your being begin to fall away, like the leaves falling from a tree in autumn, and a new kind of life is born within you. At some point you will wake up gasping for air, suddenly realizing how lacking in awareness you had been before. Death and life are two sides of the same coin. It is not possible to have one without the other. It is easy to make statements like, I am not afraid of death, it's just a shift in consciousness. But if we were really being kept in a cell tonight with an impending execution the following morning, you would find out how far these statements really went within you. I earnestly feel that a basic fear of death is entirely healthy and natural. It shows that you are aware of life. Even if you are not really afraid, it should at least send a shiver down your spine. This seems normal and natural to me. For me, the real state of non-fear arises when you have been through the fear, not when you are pretending the fear does not exist. It is not about pretending gallantly there is no fear to start with. Some fears do not serve us at all, the kind of fear that stops us from going beyond our social comfort zones. This kind of fear does not serve us at all, but fear of death is something else. Awareness of death will make us feel more aware. It will make us stand to attention in life. When we know that the grim reaper may be around any corner, it can be healthy to contemplate death in this way, to reflect that our bodies will one day die, that our physical lives will end. It is all too easy in this modern world to fall into a kind of superficial, alienated, fantasy-like awareness. Reflecting on transience can be a kind of medicine to this. Find yourself a comfortable position for meditation and begin to feel the presence of your body, but also reflect that this body's time on this earth will come to an end. Imagine how this body will dissipate over time, or be shattered and will be no more. What is really important in your life? Can you feel the components of your body, the earth, water, fire, and air, returning to the cycle of life and wheel of time? This body is just a vehicle you have borrowed for a short time. If your life is transient and all things live in the shadow of this transience, can you make a commitment to let go of and resolve any quarrels that you may have in your life? What can you let go of? What do you want to take with you into the other world when you reach the other shore? What kind of legacy of the spirit would you like to have left here? What impact would you like to have made? One of the best ways of showing that you have a real awareness of death is simply by living in a way that demonstrates that you know that your time on this earth, in this life, is precious and short. When you live in this way, a kind of spirit will shine through you, which will be a sign that you have understood something deep about what life is all about here on this earth. Aphorisms for death. In the eyes of death, you will find your life. Follow the hearse to your own funeral. Watch the soil be thrown on the coffin. If you want death to be light on you, be as familiar with it as the clouds are to the sky. Your death is your life in waiting. Seize it before it comes, and you will be reborn. The fire of the eternal soul burns in the caves of transience. Only the Lord knows the hour of your death. This day could be your last. Live knowing this. Just as the autumn trees show wonderful colour, bring beauty to your life in the moments before the end.